again, and welcome back to continue the discussion of React and making the product lister, okay? In the last video, we turned the list of products into a component, and the challenge next was to turn the list of buttons into a component. Let's give that a try. So I'm going to make a brand new file here. I'll save it. I'm going to call it category. Let's call it category list. How about that, right? And then I'll make it a .js file. So category list.js, save it to my my source directory, and we'll make a new function here, function category list, and then we're going to return the list of buttons. Let's also export this component, and again it'll be the default export, so we'll say export default category list, okay? And let's go back to our app here. So I'm in app.js, and what I want to do is cut this div out of here, right? And this this div right here, it's got this map and it's using categories and counts, so we'll need to import that over here. So let's do that. So I'm going to go here and choose and do import from ./data, right? So I'll just do ./data like this, and then inside curly brackets, I actually didn't write the name in here for a reason, right? If I do import from a file, then I can just start typing the name, and it will code hint me the things that are in there. But if you have to type the name first, it won't give you the code hints, right? So there we go. So we'll get the categories and the counts. And now let's go back to app.js, and we'll cut this div out of here, right? And so all the buttons go away, and we'll put the buttons in here. And then I'll spend a moment and format all of this so it looks nice. And there we go. So that's looking pretty good. Let's go back to app now, and we'll import that list. So let's do import category list from ./category list, right? And then the category list here will make a component out of it, right? So we'll do the angle bracket. It'll be self-closing because we don't have to have a closing tag for it. And then there, all of our buttons come back. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. And again, now I can see that I'm not using these things anymore, right? So maybe I'll take those out of here, right? I think I'm only using, wait, I guess I'm using these two right there, but I'm not using this one or the one that I deleted there. Actually, I guess I'm not using this either. There we go, right? So that cleans things up. This is a lot easier to read, right? You have to keep track of what is where though, right? So it's as a beginner, this is like maybe more confusing than keeping all the code in one place. But as you advance as a developer, this is going to be a much better arrangement. It's going to be a lot easier to manage, right? Because I can see everything that's going on in the code here. There's like nothing way down the page. And then if I want to edit either one of these things, I just have to know that all these buttons are in here and all the products are over here. So if I want to edit the buttons, I can just go to the category list and then do the editing here. And this is much simplified, okay? Okay, cool. So let's do a little more kind of cleanup work, right? So one of the things that I said earlier is that I like to add a class name to each of the components and make that class name match the name of the component, okay? So I'm going to add a class name here in the category list. So I'll go to the div here and say class name equals, and I'll make it category list, okay? And then I'm going to go to the product list and do the same thing. So I'll copy the name here, make that class name, and then set it to product list, okay? So that's kind of a nice setup, right? Okay, so let's see, where are we at with the challenges? So we got the product list here, but it also kind of wants us to to add some styles, right? So let's add a little bit of style right here and kind of style our page just a little bit, right? So currently we have a list right here, but maybe I want to make it into like you know, 3 or 4 columns, right? So let's add a style sheet. So if I look at my file list here, you can see the default React app gives us a couple style sheets. They give us app CSS and they give us index CSS. And what they're doing is they're making a style sheet for each component. So they gave us an app component and then they gave us a corresponding app.css style sheet. Okay, so we can follow that same pattern. I like to do this, right? So, you know, since we created the product list component, we'll add a product list.css style sheet. So the style sheet is the same name as the component, but it has a .css extension instead of .js. And category list will get its own style sheet also, okay? So let's do that. I'm gonna delete a couple of the styles here. So I'm in app CSS, and I think what I'm going to do is just delete everything there, right? So now we have this, right? But we can work on that, right? So let's go back into app, and maybe I'll do app, and maybe I want to create a column in the middle, so I'll do max width of 1200 pixels, and then we'll do margin auto, okay? And let me see. I feel like that should be working. Oh, you know why? Because my page isn't wide enough. There we go, right? So now it'll look like this, right? Maybe I'll make it even narrower. I did 1200. Maybe I'll do like 800. Let's do that, right? There we go, right? That'll give me a little more space. Maybe too narrow for some things, but for this it'll work. Okay. So anyway, so we've got our style sheet there. Let's follow the same procedure, but let's style the products here, right? So I'm going to make a new file, and I'll save it as product list.css. Okay. And so there's my product list. And what I want to do now is I want to import this style sheet into the product list.js. Okay, so here's product list CSS, product list JS is over here. So what we'll do is we'll go to the top and choose import. And you don't have to include anything else there. You can just put the quotation marks, right? And you'll do ./product list.css, and the spelling has to be exactly the same, right, as the file name. Okay, so we'll import our style sheet, and you know, if we look at this, we have a div here with the class name product list, and inside that div there's going to be a list of divs, and each one of those divs has an h2 the product, right? Each one of those is the block that I have selected here. Right, so this is one div, this is the next div, and the next div. So what I want to do is style the parent element and give it a grid style or a flex style to arrange everything. Okay, so let's go to our product list CSS, and then we'll do product list class name. I put the dot in front of it for the class name, right? And we'll do display as grid. Okay. So that'll give us our grid. Now I don't see the grid happening yet because we need to add a little more information. So I'm going to set up grid template columns. Okay, and this says like how many columns does my grid use? Okay, and you can set this up in a few ways. I'm going to do 1 FR, 1 FR, and 1 FR. So the FR is a fractional unit, stands for a fraction. So that means the first column is 1 fraction, the second column is 1 fraction, and the third column is 1 fraction. So here I have 3 columns and they're all equal. Okay, so when I look here, I got my 3 columns and they're all equal size. And as the page shrinks, you'll see the column should shrink also, right? Okay, so that doesn't look too bad. Maybe we want to add a gap also, so I'll do grid. Actually, like if you see it here, there is a gap here, and that's okay, but right there, like when the line is too long, there isn't much of a gap, and when the page shrinks down, you can see everything kind of runs, you know, into each other here, right? Like you see it there and there, right? So what I want to do is guarantee that there's a gap between each column, right? So I'll add grid gap, and you can make the gap anything. Maybe I'll do it as 1 rem. Okay, so now you can see I have a gap there of 1 rem. It should be 16 pixels for us, right? Okay, so that doesn't look too bad, right? I think that's kind of an improvement there. What else can we do here? Let's style the buttons, right? So let's give those a style. You can, you know, feel free to play with this. This is kind of an open-ended challenge. Like you can do as much here as you like for fun. Let's try and get started styling the category list. Okay, so I'll add a new style sheet here. I'll save it as category list.css. And then this, I have the category list as a class name also, so I'll just start a style for that, right? So I'll put that in there, and then we'll go to category list.js, and we'll import this style sheet category list.css, and we have to spell this out because it's not a JS file. Okay, and then there's our category name or our class name, right? So I've got that here. And now let's style everybody. So again, I have an outer element that has a list of buttons inside. So I can style this one with grid, or I could style it with flex to arrange all those buttons. Let's try flex for this example. So I'll set this to display flex, right? And it puts everybody in a row. That is a little bit crowded, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to say flex wrap, and then I'll choose wrap as the option there. And so now it will line everybody up in a row, but when they reach the edge, they'll wrap onto the next line. Okay? So you can see the wrapping at the end there. So that doesn't look too bad, right? Kind of improving. So maybe we want to style the buttons. Like I like these buttons, but I want to give them some style. So, you know, if I look at the category list arrangement here, you can see that the button is a child of this category list class item, right? So we could put a class name on this, but we can also use the child selector with CSS. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say category list child button tag. Okay, so notice since this is the tag name, it doesn't have the dot in front of it, and we use the arrow to say that button is a child, right? So that means an immediate descendant. So if there was another tag between the button and the category list, then this would not apply, okay? Okay, cool, so we're making some progress. Let's style the button. Let's give it, how about a font? For some reason, buttons are smaller than the default font size. They're a little bit smaller. So I'm going to say font size of 1 rem. So now they'll be a little bit bigger. And then maybe we'll do padding. And if we do, this is padding on the top, right, bottom, and left, right? So think clockwise, top, right, bottom, and left. So what I think and actually if you just do 2 numbers here, it's top and bottom, right and left, okay? So for the top and bottom, I think I'm going to add half a rem, okay? And so now we have a little bit of space at the top and the bottom. And then for the left and the right, I'm going to do 1 rem, okay? So that gives my button some generous space there. Maybe I'll also do a border of 1, let's do 2 pixel solid, right? When you write it like this, it's really like I'm saying button width is 2 pixels and or border width is 2 pixels and then border style is solid, right? You have to set the style or the border doesn't show up, okay? So there's my border there. And then I should set the color too. So let's do like border color of black, right? There's my border. Let's give it a border radius too. So let's say border radius of, let's do half a rem. Okay. So a rem stands for a root M, and an M is the font size. So the root M is the base font size set, you know, on the body tag, essentially. So for us, that should be 16 pixels, right? And if you change the font size on the body, then everybody that's using the rem is going to change, right, based on that number. So if I made the font size 20, then this would be 20 pixels, this would be 10, and this would be 20, right? If it right now it's set to 16, so this is going to be 16 and this is going to be 8. Okay, so that doesn't look too bad. Could use like a little bit more there, but maybe I'll stop there for now. Maybe that background color isn't very good. Let's do a little bit more. Let's say background color is let's do black as the background color, and then that means the text color needs to be white. So let's do that, right? There, that doesn't look too bad, right? A little harsh. Maybe it could have been, maybe not quite black. Let's do like a dark gray. Let's do like, how about like that, right? And then maybe instead of white, let's do, there we go. That doesn't look too bad, right? So anyway, so thanks for watching. That should cover a big chunk of challenge number 9, right? So the next step is to add some interaction, right? And so the idea now is that when you click on one of the buttons here, we want that button to be highlighted, and we want it to filter the list here. And this is going to be broken up into a couple challenges here. Okay, so we're going to do a few things with this, right? But the idea here is like, this is kind of a big one, right? We did some easy ones there, but now we're on a major one, right? So clicking a button should highlight that button, right? And filter the list down here to display only the items that match the category, okay? Only the products where that category matches, right? Okay, so anyway, thanks for watching and have a nice day. And then we'll continue in the next video.